Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and you're listening and/or watching the snobOS show, the show where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody. We are back post Thanksgiving, fresh off all of the turkey and cobblers and pies and cakes and all that good stuff to bring you another episode of the snobOS show. First, we want to start off by thanking all of our patrons who were just in our pre-show. You too can have access to our pre-show for just $5 a month. You will get access not only to the pre-show, but to our live taping, which is done every Wednesday starting at 6 p.m., as well as our Discord chat, which will likely go over to a Facebook group starting in January of 2021. Let's hope we make it. We have 29 days left of 2020. I think the countdown is probably on for most people because we are ready to at least turn the page on 2020. We don't know how much better 2021 is going to be, but it has to be better than 2020. So I think a lot of us are hanging our hats on that. So let's go ahead and dive into the show. Let's start with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. So the first thing we have on deck is that Google Project Zero found a vulnerability in iOS. And essentially, this vulnerability allows someone to have control over your iPhone if you're on Wi-Fi. It was patched by Apple earlier this year. And essentially, yes, it was I call it Project Zero, but that's Google's vulnerability research unit. And, with ethical hacking and all those types of things, they are now really showing what the vulnerability could have done now that it's patched. Ian Beer, who was the researcher who found this, he outlined on yesterday, Tuesday, and he spent apparently about 6 months doing a POC, which is proof of concept, on this exploit to see how effective it is. And so he wrote a blog post about it, and it described how an attacker could access your iPhone remotely with Wi-Fi. And my understanding is you just need to be in range of the Wi-Fi of the person who you are trying to get access to. And it looks like it was fixed back in 13.5 iOS back in May. And it's interesting. It says that it only covers users who have installed the patch. But I'm assuming, I don't know if it specifically says it in the article, but I'm assuming that any patches that were in iOS 13 were ported over to 15, especially one of this nature. I find it interesting. I don't know if there was a specific reason around the I guess, releasing of this blog post that described the issue, since it has been 7-8 months since the patch was deployed. So
It's just clickbait. Apple is but fair enough. Apple is one of these major companies. So you don't be surprised that they get extra scrutiny, even by, people who are trying to find vulnerabilities with Apple software. Rightfully so, because Apple has put out a bounty to where, Apple, according to this story, Apple will pay up to $1 million for the discovery of certain vulnerabilities in the software. So, Apple being such a big company, They are more likely, allegedly, to let things slip. So it makes sense for people like this guy to try to see if they can find vulnerabilities, not only because Apple is a big company, but because
It's
they'll get a
Apple.
reward for
Yeah.
it, right? Right. And it's ethical hacking, like you mentioned, in the sense that, if you do find this, you bring it to Apple's attention, they patch it before crazy damage is caused,
Hmm.
right? But more importantly, I don't want to say importantly, but more specifically as to why something like this would pop up, is because clickbait. Apple vulnerability is news, right? I mean, because they mentioned that this story was written in December, what, yesterday, today,
Today, no,
rather.
Tuesday,
But it was patched, right? But it was patched in
May.
May with iOS 13.5. Since I Between iOS 13.5 and iOS
14 dot.
14, I think we're on 14.0.1 or something like that. There's been multiple little releases. I know because my job is to, update 30,000 devices with the latest iOS software, right? So there's been multiple patches since then. So it is kind of curious, but it kind of isn't, that this story will come up now. Obviously, being because it's Apple.
Yeah, and we're on version. I just checked my phone to see how big of the gap. We're on 14.2.1.
Right.
So it's almost a full cycle of patches. So I guess when you put it that way, definitely it's clickbait because I guess Apple has been getting too much positive news, especially with the M1 chip. Everyone has really been raving about the M1 chip devices. So I guess he was like, let me go ahead and rain on y'all's parade a little bit. And if you're
Right.
only a headline reader, if you were to see this, because this is, I
Right.
just pulled, we're reading a story from Cult of Mac. But there were, when I was looking for stories today, there were a lot of other, places that had, links, titles that were, someone can control your iPhone over Wi-Fi. So if you don't read
Right.
the article, you would think, oh my God, someone can hack my phone and down, because one of the articles I read, it was like, you can download their sensitive data. All you need to do is be in close proximity to the Wi-Fi. You can take advantage of the vulnerability. And people can like start to freak out and say, what's going on? And you know how people love to jump to social media and start to put it on there. If you're just a headline
Mhm.
reader, you could think that, oh my God, I'm in immediate danger of being hacked, not realizing that this was fixed 7 months ago. So, I just
Right.
find it
And most of us
interesting.
are, headline readers,
Yeah. And
because the
yeah.
things I've seen on social media, it's like, wait a minute, this is like 4 years old, and they go, oh, my bad.
Oops.
So it's like we as a whole, we have to start to read, and not specifically just for this story,
In
but in
general.
general, because these journalists, these tech bloggers, these people, they do their SEO keyword search. They know what trends and what doesn't. So, I'm not surprised that this is news now
And this and
instead of being
it's
news
yeah,
back
and it's
then.
not just with this one site. It's on all the sites. It's the top story on all the sites. If you go to any of them, you'll see that this is the top story, even though it's months old. And his post, he just wrote it yesterday or today, but
Hmm.
it was something in COVID in 2020 years is, I mean, time is probably like 5 years ago by
Right.
now. But
Right.
yeah, so it's just interesting to see. I'm glad that it's got the visibility and people are aware, but I think it's equally important for people to realize that this was caught and fixed back in May. But I just find it interesting that it's something that was on literally the top story on all the tech sites today. So
Hmm.
all right. So let's move on into a little bit more happier news on the Mac side of the house. And one chip I mentioned before, how everyone is impressed with it, how great it is, and with zipping through is really fast, is really slick. Everybody likes it. Well, recently, a lot of times within Mac OS, you can boot up a Windows version, for lack of a better term. Well, apparently within the M1 world, the Windows virtualization is faster than even Microsoft's Surface Pro X. Apparently, it's really snappy, it's really quick, it moves around pretty well, and like everything else M1 related, the way you can use your a Windows machine on your Mac has improved as well. So not only are you getting an improved Apple device, you're able to run a Windows virtualization, a Windows OS inside your Mac. That's actually, it seems to be better than using it on an actual Microsoft device.
Right. So that's the key, right? Microsoft software runs faster on Apple's hardware, faster than Microsoft's hardware. If that if I didn't confuse it, so it's interesting. Now, of course, this is all simulated.
Yeah.
This is not, I don't think it was put to any sort of real world tests, and no shade to Microsoft, right?
Right.
But it just goes to show
How good the
that,
M1 chip
well,
is.
right, maybe a little bit of shade to Microsoft because I'm pretty sure Apple meant that, but
Of course
it's
they did.
it's friendly competition because they work together on a lot of things. Specifically, Office software works way better than Apple's version of Pages, Keynote, and
Keynote, yeah.
Numbers. So there's some back and forth there, friendly competition.
But they still have to work
you know,
together.
right. I was reading the story to where Craig Federighi, VP of Software Engineering, mentions that the ARM version of Windows, the current version of Windows 10, could run natively on Apple Silicon M1 Macs without any sort of virtualization, without any sort of porting. I should be able to just buy Windows 10 for Microsoft, but according to him, that's really up to Microsoft, which I don't see that happening because,
There's
as
still
a
competition.
PC user, right? Well, and what's good for the goose, right?
Yeah.
Apple's not selling Mac OS to Windows users to run natively.
No.
Now that they got Big Sur, now that it's virtualized and optimized for ARM and Silicon, the opposite can be true. If Windows 10 can run natively on a Mac now, according to Craig Federighi, then the opposite should be true to where Windows Mac OS could be able to run natively on ARM, but they ain't doing that. So
no. They're not giving that up. No.
Right.
But I think the headline is great, and it really does kind of put Microsoft in the hot seat, where folks are saying, well, why should I even buy a Windows machine when I can buy a Mac and get a Windows as well, and it works better? So what Apple, with this story, and what Apple was really specific about was they compared a $999 M1 MacBook Air and the $999 Surface Pro X, which is comparable in far as price. Mm-hmm.
We all know that you can get a Windows PC
for $299,
$149. Right. The cheapest M1 Mac you can get is the Mac Mini, and that's at $699. I think it's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to pick and choose how you want to compare these, right? Because you could say all day long that it's faster. Well, I ain't got $99 fast. What I got is $300 fast. Can I get that in a Mac? No. Okay, I'm gonna stick with my Windows.
Or a Black Friday $149 special. It's like, look.
Right.
So yeah. But I think it's just adding more and more credence to M1 for folks who were already in the market and who have a budget of $999 to $1,200 or whatever the range is, or if you want to drop it down to the minis, $699 to $1,299. So yeah. So I just thought that was a very interesting read, just to show how much the M1 chip, how well it's still doing. Everyone's still pretty pleased with it. So yeah. All right. The last thing in Apple news, we were just talking about the different iOS versions when we were talking about the vulnerability. Apparently, the iOS 14.3 beta this is their third version of the beta, and iPad OS 14.3 beta 3 has been shipped out to developers to start doing their testing and doing their development of their apps. So it looks like this latest version, it came out today, which is Wednesday. And apparently it features a couple of things that are of interest, including Apple Pro Raw, the photo mode for the iPhone 12 Pro lines, which allows for, I think, the editing of high-res videos directly on the device. And it looks like iOS 14, it includes an update of some new features as well, including home screen widgets. We've talked about that before. I can customize your home screen, plug to Terrance for his Apple News story on PC Mag that showed up on his widget, a new compact UI, app library for all of your apps, and a redesigned Messages app. So it looks like we may get this a new update fairly soon. It doesn't look like it was released with much fanfare, and it was done over the Thanksgiving break. So I guess probably in the next few months or so, probably the first quarter of 2021, we'll likely see a new update to iOS 14.
All right.
So keep an eye out for that. And it looks like it will be compatible on a whole line of products. It looks like it covers the gamut of what it covers now. It doesn't look like anything has been dropped from the previous iOS 14 release. So
Nope.
you should be still, most folks should be still good to go with when this update is released. All right. Anything else you want to talk about in Apple News before we move on over?
Nope.
All right, cool. All right, let's head on over to Second String where we talk all other tech. It's been kind of a light tech news week. I was on the struggle bus trying to find some things this week to talk about, but one thing that I did see is the Google Authenticator app for iOS. So it now gets the dark theme that many developers like, and also you can do a bulk transfer of your two-factor accounts. That would have been great for me when I got my new iPhone 12 because I didn't back up all of my I have two. I use the Google and the Microsoft Authenticator for different apps, and I had to go around the bend to get them all back set up. But yeah, so it looks like the Android version of this update was done earlier this year. So now the update comes on over to iOS. So it looks like when you do the two-step verification, when you log into sites, it's simpler. It allows you to do bulk transfers of your accounts. And again, like I said, it gets a little bit of a update, a fresh new coat of paint, so to speak, on the dark mode theme. It doesn't look like it's too. I'm reading an article from 9 to 5 Google. Yeah, that's pretty much the biggest things on there. I mean, they're pretty big things, but that seems pretty much to be what the new update covers for iOS. And like I said, it already was moved. It was already rolled out for Android devices, which makes sense because it is Android-based application. So yeah, that's pretty much it with that. Do you use Google Authenticator?
Yeah, I use LastPass Authenticator, but surprisingly, maybe I haven't checked in a while, but a lot of services, applications still think that not old school, but people are okay with just using the text message method of two-factor authentication. And I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not, but it's really advised to use an authenticator app over just getting a text message with a code. Not to say it's, I don't even know if there has been proven cases to say it is weaker. It's just more, you're going to get more, um, in the long run, eventually that text message method will go away. So it's much better right now to go ahead and switch over to using a authenticator app, or there's some other ways you can do two factor. You can use a secure key. I think I've even seen some USB
Like the RSA
dongles
keys,
where,
yeah.
right, the RSA keys to where you can use it that way. It's a hassle, it's a headache. I had a client a couple weeks ago who upgraded her device or upgraded her Apple ID, and Apple makes you do two-factor authentication, right? And she was upset because it's like, now I gotta, every time I log into something, I gotta use this code, or I gotta have another device, because Apple, they make you jump through some hoops,
Yeah.
Jack, to where you gotta have another device on you. And if
Yeah.
you're in the bedroom and you're trying to do something and it says enter the code found on this other, now you
You
gotta
got to
get
go get
up
up and go find that device.
the battery's dead. You gotta plug it up, and it's just a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But in the long run,
It's
you're going to appreciate it
yes.
if something happens, and nobody wants to hear that because it
Until
ain't never
something
happened to them.
happens.
Right, until it happens, right? Then, then everybody's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? So all that to say, two-factor authentication via an app like Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. Like I said, I use LastPass. There's a couple other authenticator apps out there. If your app services, if your accounts, if your websites, um, if it's compatible, you definitely want to switch over to using an app, because again, that's going to give you security down the road.
Yeah, and I think a lot, like you mentioned with Apple, a lot of companies are honestly forcing people to, go ahead and do that. I mean, even if it's just the text messaging version, it's, I guess they're getting people used to the idea, and then eventually, I agree, it's going to come to a point where the text messaging option is going to go away, and you're going to have
Because there's so
to.
many, because everything is on the web, everything is on the cloud. We got
Yep.
to sign into every and anything. You can't use hardly any piece of tech without having to create an account for it. So eventually, there's going to be some massive something, and they're going to force us all over because something major thing has been hacked. So might as well just do it now.
Yep. Save yourself some trouble and make it a little bit easier for yourself. All right. The other thing that we have in second string, we've all been, well, not all, most of us have been in lockdown. Can't go to the movies. I think there's some drive-ins, but a lot of people have been using a house party, or in this particular article's case, Hulu's watch party feature, where you can send a link. A group of you can get together and start a movie and watch together in your respective homes. Previously, for Hulu, you only had the watch party feature for the ad-free plans. So if you had, the higher tiered plans, you could only use this feature. Now, Hulu has made it available for everyone. So regardless of what tier or what plan you're on in Hulu, you now have access to Watch Party. So you can watch, especially I think it comes in handy now, specifically now that we're actually in December. Christmas movies are abound. People can't, socialize like they used to. So you want to watch a Christmas movie, you can get together and use this Watch Party and watch a movie with up to 7 other Hulu account subscribers. So you can get together
Right.
and watch a movie together. So I thought that was
And
very kind of them to
yeah,
extend it to everybody and not just have it on the premium tiers.
right. And not only that, you watch it together, you can react in real time through the chat function. So it gives you like that Twitter,
Live tweet
you
feel.
know, yeah, that feel to where, you're watching something and somebody says something funny or whatever the case may be, or you just want to, make fun of whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that via their chat function to control their own playback. I'm curious as to how that works. Well, I guess if you have the Hulu app on a mobile device, then it should be pretty easy to, pop up the chat function and talk back and forth. But if you're using like
On a smart
an Apple
TV.
TV
Yeah.
or a Roku or something like that, the chat function, you may have to jump through a couple hoops to do that.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. This is all new. This is that new normal that we were
Yeah.
talking about in the pre-show, and it's only going to get better. You'll have to
Fine
figure out
tune it.
how to right to where video, two-way video, you can group it together with video chat so you can actually
See
see
each other while you're
your
watching the
group
movie and see
members.
your expressions
Right.
and
So,
laugh together
and
and all that stuff.
reactions.
Yeah.
Right. So all that'll come eventually because, like I said, like we mentioned, all this stuff is the new normal. So
Yep. So yeah. All right. So that's it for second string. Let's head on over to For the Culture. And this is a doozy this week, what we have in For the Culture. So, of course, Twitter being what Twitter is, apparently this restaurant in Dallas called True Kitchen and Cocktails, the owner went viral because someone recorded his rant in his restaurant. Apparently, it was like, people love to throw trap in front of something. Trap yoga, trap brunch, trap this, trap that. So they had, it appears to be some sort of event brunch at this particular restaurant. And a 52-second video was posted of the owner, Kevin Kelly, going off, cursing out his patrons and I think that the tweet that I saw, it was like restaurant suicide was the caption. And I mean, it wasn't just, okay, guys, it was some respectability politics thrown in there. It was some cursing thrown in there and get out. We don't need your money thrown in there. It was pretty, it was a lot. And it all started apparently by some of the restaurant guests twerking on the chairs in the restaurant. And apparently, from what I'm gathering, it's all kind of fuzzy. The owner did approach the ladies before and asked them not to twerk on the couches, and apparently they didn't pay.
Down a little bit.
Yeah, apparently they didn't pay no mind, and they continued to twerk at the brunch, and then he just went off.
Lost it.
Yeah. So a little bit what he said, I'm reading an article from the Dallas News, but in the article that we'll have in the show notes, it has the video as well. And it starts off with, I invested a lot of money into buying this building, developing this concept so Black people can have somewhere nice to go. Then he tells the DJ to stop, but all this twerking, and he curses, and he just kind of goes in. You can get out of my restaurant. Just imagine explicit language in this. I'm cleaning it up because, I mean, we're a family show. And he was like, anybody who doesn't like what I have to say can go because I don't need your money. So, yeah. The tweet pulled in millions of views in less than a day, and it's still going because on Instagram there are still people responding and it's turned into a whole meme now. It's a whole joke now. So it's like different jokes around it. So the owner has even come out to stand by his statement. He is not backing down. He said what he said. He said it with his whole chest, and he meant it. So my question to you is, do you think it was some respectability politics or good business in what he did?
Well, it's both, right? The respectability politics comes in where he mentions that women who he was addressing specifically because they were the target of his rant or his earlier issues that built up to this rant. The respectability politics comes in to where he mentions that I've created this atmosphere to where people can come and behave a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, and he specifically points out to the women, my customer base is 75% women, and, you know, I have some men here too who, patron the establishment, and, they want to be able to respect women as well. So the respectability politics come into where it's like, okay, well, if you dress a certain way or you do a certain thing, that makes you by default less desirable, less respected
And able to be
by the opposite
disrespected.
sex or
Yeah.
by right. So if you look like a hoe, then don't be surprised if people treat you like a hoe. That's respectability politics,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case. You should be free to wear whatever, but still be respected until you show them otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, and I think that's where he made a mistake to where assuming that because they were out of line,
In his
them
mind.
specifically, but right in his mind, them specifically, but we as black people as a whole, this is going to be a strike against us because they specifically are in this restaurant acting a certain way that he doesn't necessarily agree with. So that I think that's the main thing he tripped up on to where could have he could have worded it a little bit better. And even in his, double down, he does say it was a poor choice of wording. He didn't say specifically what part was poor choice because on top of the respectability politics, he was also cursing. Y'all
Like
can get out. I
curse
want your
words.
money.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where he slipped up. Right. Another place where I think he could have averted or diverted a lot of this newfound, attention is the environment itself, right? Because the music he was playing led to
The
the
twerking.
attitudes or the actions, right? So if I was a business owner and owning a restaurant, I've never ran a restaurant, so I'm not going to assume I'm the expert. But if I was in this position, I probably would have reached out to them first, like he did,
Mm-hmm.
like according to the stories he mentioned. He reached out to them and talked to them privately and said, "Hey, I'd appreciate it if you not stand on my furniture," which is janky, by the way. Let me not absolve these women because they ain't gonna go in their own house and stand on furniture and do all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you go to an establishment of somebody else's and do this? So I'm not absolving them at all. But back to the story. He reached out to them personally and said, "Hey, I appreciate it if y'all don't do this," so on and so forth. Then they commenced to do it. My stance is, okay, well, what 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 can I do to stop this behavior? The
Mm-hmm.
first thing I would have did was
Ask them
go
leave.
to the DJ. Right? No, not even that. I wouldn't even did that. I would have said, "Hey, DJ, play something else. Whatever you're playing,
Play some
stop
smooth
because
jazz.
play some smooth jazz. Play some,
90s R and
whatever,
B, something.
whatever, because or cut the music off altogether, because obviously it wasn't just him that saw these actions.
It was the whole
Obviously,
restaurant.
the whole restaurant knew what was going on. So him simply cutting the music would have clearly sent a message: stop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can't. I mean, I guess you can twerk without music, but the whole you hear
The
the
whole,
rhythm, you
this
get
the
your body,
whole, yes,
right?
in that atmosphere. Yeah.
Right. Change the atmosphere, change the environment, you change the actions, right? So I think that's another area where he could have, calmed it down. But again, I mean, it's his restaurant. To his benefit or to his detriment, he can run it however he wants to run it. And this is how he decides he wants to run it. Then he's got to be okay with the fallback,
And these
and that's
jokes,
the
because he's been getting the jokes.
right,
And my thing is, you have an issue with a table. If you talk to them,
right,
it didn't help. Even if he kept the music playing, the next step would have been, asking them to leave. If they didn't leave
right,
quietly, then you got to get, some security or whatever the case may be. But to basically curse out the whole restaurant and
right,
basically put
and
that on everybody that was in there that were just trying to drink their
Right.
mimosas and eat their chicken and waffles. You saying black people, blacks for black. I mean, you're making it seem, you're
But
trying
see,
to do that to all of them when it was just a smaller population who you had an issue with.
and that's the gift and the curse to black folks in general, because we should not have to be the example for the entire race. But we know we are.
Yeah.
We know, I should not, my behavior as Terrance Gaines should not reflect on this show's behavior or your behavior, Nica Montford, right? But
It does.
it does, because if I say something, you know, unlike, other people like white people, this is the privilege that we're talking about, right? This whole white privilege thing, it's not this overt thing. It's something simple as a white person can do something and it reflects on them specifically. I can do something as a black man and it reflects on black men, it reflects on black people. So what he was trying to do was he was trying to make a case for, we need to do better. And this is a prime example of how we need to do better when we shouldn't have to, right? It should not be, he feels bad as a business, a black owned restaurant business owner, that these group of people have decided to do this thing at this one time, and that reflects on the whole restaurant. He should not feel that way.
Yeah.
So he does, but as a result, this is where it comes out, because we shouldn't, right? So it's kind of like a gift and a curse, right?
And I find it interesting because after he made that comment, I saw people posting on Twitter, apparently at another restaurant full of white people. It was outdoors, people were eating, and they played Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's WAP. And the white girls got up, were singing the song, explicit language and all, up having themselves a ball. And the only thing that happened was they finished their song and they sat back down and continued eating. And the person that was videoing it, there was a guy sitting at her table and he was just like, oh my God, that type of thing. But they let them finish their song and then they sat back down and went back to it. And
nobody
said
thought anything specifically, and again, that's an internal thing, right? Because maybe if we internally didn't feel like we were responsible for the actions of
every black person,
right, we could have the space to be ourselves and not have to have that extra, okay, well, let me make sure I'm, not showing out, let me make sure I'm not, I'm representing the race, right? Because internally, and as a result, this is how it comes out, because he felt like we shouldn't be acting this way. Right or wrong, that's how he felt. And since this is his restaurant, this is how he decided to do it. When when the opposite could be true as well. This could have just been a incident amongst this group. Like you mentioned, he could have went specifically to this group and said, hey, I appreciate if y'all don't do this. They do it again. He gives them a second warning, or he says, you know what, I'm gonna need y'all to leave, and that be it. He could still play the music, because the videos that I've seen more leading up to him actually come out and addressing the restaurant.
The whole restaurant, yeah.
They were doing the line dances. They were, I mean,
doing what black people do at a restaurant, and that's a trap or like a brunch type DJ type thing. You play the song, they got a line dance. I don't care where you at. Black people are gonna get up and line dance. That's just what we do.
And then you go into the next song. You tone it down.
You sit back down. You go back eating your waffles. Yeah.
So, you can make a case that he was trying to have his cake and eat it too. He was trying to create this environment, but he didn't want it to take where
he didn't want to be too black.
Control that. You can't control people's actions.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't start with the premise of the whole restaurant doing a line dance to the Cupid Shuffle. Then they play Cardi B, and then they start doing what you do to a Cardi B song. And I don't think it was the issue of them doing it on the chair. If they were just twerking standing or near the table, he would have had a problem with it. So I think it was just, the whole respectability. It's cool when we do the line dance and we all have a good time, but then when you start to make us look bad, then it's a problem. And like I said before, you tell them the whole restaurant, I don't need your money, and that's not going to go over well. That's not going to go over well.
Right, because what you're not going to do, whether I'm wrong, if I'm wrong and I'm standing on your furniture blatantly, what you're not going to do
is tell me you don't need my money
about myself in front of all these people.
Right.
Because I'm going to clap back, because what you're not going to do is disrespect me.
Right.
Even I'm
in the wrong
restaurant. Right.
That's how we
what
do.
You're not going to do. And that's exactly what happened. So here we are. Right?
Here we are. So I'm First of all, let's not miss the obvious pink elephant in the room. I ain't see no masks. This restaurant doesn't look very large. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. There was no social distancing. Did they just forget that we are in a panty right now?
Like I mentioned in the pre-show, people are over it. And there was a lot of people there. And I think not most people, a nice number of people made that comment. Why are there so many people at this brunch in the first place? And it just goes to show people are over it. They're over it.
Because the space doesn't look very large. There's some pictures on the article that I'm looking at, and the space doesn't look very large. You can look at, the video itself. It doesn't look like a very large space. And it was a lot of people in there. So this might turn out to be a super spreader event as well. So the restaurant might have to be closed down. Because, it is Texas, so I don't think Texas has the same guidelines. I think everything is open in Texas, much like Georgia. Mm-hmm. So they'll probably be fine in the respect of, following the rule of the law. But following the rules of the CDC guidelines, they failed all the guidelines.
Right. So that's first and foremost, right?
That's first.
Going forward, I think his whole idea is, that's not the environment or the experience rather that he wants to portray.
But you can't play that kind of music, and you can't, like you said, he wants his cake and eat it too. He was fine with the line dancing and all the people there,
and the extra music and the loudness, because he's got a DJ over there. I mean,
you got a whole DJ. That doesn't. I mean, there are plenty. I've been to restaurants and brunches where they had a DJ, but because you had a DJ, it was a de facto dance floor wherever you were, because you got a DJ and he's playing all the hot records. So what you do to that? Plus, I think I saw someone saying that they were waiting 2 hours for food. So all they were having were really cocktails because the food hadn't come out. So you got trap music, you got no food and cocktails.
Right.
It's a recipe.
Empty stomachs drinking.
Right.
And standing.
Right. With a live DJ. So you kind of got what was.
And he was playing the song. I've never heard the song before, but I'm reading the story. He says, customer Trice Jones and her sister had been in a restaurant for about an hour at the time of the incident. She said she believes the music played a part and notes that Lil Ronnie song, Throw That Ass in a Circle. I don't know.
It's probably a Dallas song.
So the name of the song itself
is telling you what to do.
The twerking. You can't be surprised, right?
When they actually throw that in a circle.
Obviously, he was surprised, and I mean, it's his right to run a restaurant however he wants to run it. But again, I don't feel like it's not fair to him, and it's not fair to the patrons that are at the subject of this, that they feel and he feels that their actions or the actions that took place in this restaurant represents the Black community as a whole, because it shouldn't and it doesn't.
Yeah. But I think the lesson is stay out of restaurants. If you do go into restaurants, wear a mask and social distance. The end.
Right. He ain't got to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have people in the restaurant, so I think it's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to have that problem, especially when you tell people, I don't need your money. Telling a Black person, I don't need your money is, whew. That's a
There
lot.
are there are people there are people who believe in respectability
Oh yeah, so
politics.
maybe
There
those
are
folks will come
people Right. There are people who
who
believe that,
subscribe to
there's a time and place for everything.
hmm a lot of
Right.
black people.
So,
Yeah,
right. So you never know. You never know.
maybe that's the crowd he'll get. He'll get the respectability politics crowd. They may not drink as much,
Hmm.
but maybe they'll show. It'll
Don't
be
spend all the money.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see if we hear anything else about True Kitchen and Cocktails and about their
We'll change the
business.
channel. Something else will come up and we'll change the channel.
Yeah, I think the channel. Well, the channel hasn't changed because it's still going on, and I'm still laughing. But I
Mm.
know we have um, the issue here in Georgia. Where the Republicans are turning on each other now. The elections
Mhm.
guy from Georgia, he pretty much called Trump out and all those folks
Right.
because
Raffensperger.
yeah, Raffensperger called him out,
Uh-huh.
because the young guy, they put a noose out. And I mean, trust me, it's plenty of stuff that will come in and take this place, but
Divert our attention.
divert our
Right. We got
attention.
the
But
runoffs.
I'm surprised this has gone on this long because
Right.
normally the Twitter cycle is like a day. This is going
Well,
on
people
several
have
days now.
strong opinions.
Yeah.
People have strong opinions, of her act, of the actions of the group, the actions of the restaurant owner, how, like we mentioned, how black people should be acting. That's a long time issue, a struggle, in the black community, and there is no one right way, and for him trying to for 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 the ladies or whoever was the target being out of line. Like you mentioned, wherever they were twerking, it was going to be an issue. But yeah, you're not supposed to disrespect people's furniture. This is not a club, and I think that was the point he was trying to make. When you go to again, I'm out the game, but the popular thing to do in a club is stand on the furniture,
Yes.
and
That's still a thing.
it's like a thing. It's like a thing, right? So I guess in his mind, he was like, "Well, I'm not a club, so for the fact that y'all standing on my furniture, y'all out of place. Number one, for standing on people's furniture. And number two, this is not a club. This is not the environment to do that. So that is one thing. And then again, like I said, the larger issue is to feel like he had to take it to that's not how black folks act. Is another thing,
Yeah.
and that's probably why this is going so long because people have strong
Yeah.
opinions on
On both
how should
sides.
black people act. Right, right.
Yeah. Because I've seen,
Hmm.
people, he was right. I don't see anything he said was wrong. And then it was like other people that were like, he's just going with the respectability
Right.
politics kind of deal. But,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
it'll, I'm sure it'll continue to play out probably over the next, it probably should start to fizzle out by tomorrow.
Right.
Because it's still, today's Wednesday. And I just saw an Instagram post, getting people's, you know, gifs and memes about it.
Well,
So
another thing people have done on social media is latch on to a trending story. So that's probably why this is going on even longer, is because people have recognized, okay, if I put this up or I talk about
I'm
this
gonna get some
thing,
likes and some
I'm gonna get
engagement.
some likes, I'm gonna get some conversation, I'm gonna get some back and forth, and that equates to, okay, I'm influential now. I'm the whatever homegirl on the scene, whatever. Now you've made a business out of, Shade Room and Gossip and, all these other places that do stuff like this. They see the traction that those stories gets on those sites.
Yep.
And it's like, well, why can't I do that? So then something like this pops up, perfect opportunity to get your name out there.
Yep. Because this happened on Sunday night. So last
Yep.
Sunday. So, it's what, 4 days later and we're still talking about it. So yeah. All right. That is it for the culture. Let's head on over to what Brother Tech has in the hookup.
All right, all right. So, I've been trying to I'm not into the heavy customization of the home screen since iOS 14 has been announced. People have been changing colors, they've been changing icons. They've got it's a whole
It's a business
environment
now.
to where
Yeah.
people, yeah, it's a business. People are making money selling templates and all that. So, I'm not going that far, but I did need to kind of jazz up my home screen with some additional widgets. The native widgets, they're kind of whack for Apple. So I stumbled upon this event countdown app. And the cool thing about this event countdown app is you can create a countdown for pretty much any date. So in my case, I've got 30 days until my birthday is coming. Hey, so let me figure out how to make a countdown for that. So basically what you do is the name of the app is event countdown app from Widget Studio, and we'll put a link in the show notes to the blog post that I did. And basically what you do is you go download the app. It's a free app. Basically what you do is you go in and you select a date. You will create the countdown. You put, if you want to add the date, if you want to add color, you can add an icon for the countdown. And then once you've created this countdown, you go into your phone and do the traditional thing that you do is, add a widget to your home screen. You search for the event countdown app. It opens up. You can select the actual event countdowns that you've created, and then you can put those on your home screen. So that's all. Just wanted to highlight, anybody that does like a countdown for like your birthday, right? You can also do a countdown for when you go on your next trip. You can do a countdown for, getting married or getting engaged or whatever thing that you would want to see when you open up your phone, so you can actually see how many days are left. If you have a weight loss journey, whatever the case, buying a new car, whatever you can think of, and it has a date associated with it, you can use this event countdown app and create a nice little widget for your home screen to get that at a glance view of the days remaining for your event.
Cool. Something to look
Yep.
forward to, especially for 2021 when we can start hopefully doing
Right.
things again.
Right. You can put a one of the suggestions that I put on my blog was I'll put a countdown for when the zombies show up after people start taking the vaccine. Right. Put a countdown to that because
Yeah.
there's some people who are going to be looking funny.
I'm going to let them try the vaccine out.
Right.
Black people have been experimented on enough. I think it's someone else's turn to try
Right.
out with the vaccine first. So
Right.
I'm going to let them do that. And I'm just going to continue to stay inside and wear my mask when I do have to go out and use my hand sanitizer.
Right. Yeah. One of the other ones, maybe you could use this one, do a countdown for when outside opens back up.
Right.
So, put a countdown for that. So I thought that was cool. So I just thought
Yeah.
I'd share that.
Cool. All right. That's our show for this week. So definitely download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also hit us up on the social media outlets, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're at snobOS Cast everywhere. Also, be sure to tune in on YouTube. We're at snobOS Cast there as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channels. That would definitely help. Also, you can leave us any comments or suggestions on either our website, snobOScast.com, or shoot us over an email at snobOScast@gmail.com. Don't forget, you too can become a Patreon for as little as $5 a month by subscribing at patreon.com/snobOScast. With that $5 a month, you get access to our pre-show content, access to our live taping, and access to our Discord live chat. And I think that's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week.
That's it.
Bye.
Peace.